Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. The first hearing with the special master was held with President Trump's lawyers and the Justice Department prosecutors. Biden and the Democrats are likely to fail at passing the DISCLOSE Act again. Germany and Europe are facing serious winter heating problems. Germany may even take the measure of nationalizing its energy companies. President Trump even made the alarming prediction that the crisis might endanger Germany's national fortunes. A Canadian driver who lost his job after refusing a vaccination has won unemployment benefits in a lawsuit. This is a far-reaching case that amounts to a direct declaration that the Canadian government's policy of denying unemployment benefits to people who do not get vaccinated is unconstitutional. The latest Canadian study on vaccines has made shocking discoveries that further confirm the absurdity of the government's policy. Okay. Let's get into it. On Tuesday, September 20th, Special Master Raymond Dearie held a hearing in New York with President Trump's legal team and with Justice Department prosecutors. He outlined his plan for an independent review of the files that were seized from Mar-a-Lago by the FBI. Judge Aileen Cannon ordered Dearie to complete his review of the thousands of files by November 30th. Dearie said that he had very little time to complete the task. Dearie told Trump's lawyers that they need to prove whether these documents had been declassified. Dearie said that the Justice Department provided him with prima facie evidence that these documents are classified. Trump's lawyer, James Trusty, argued that President Trump could declassify any file he wanted during his presidency. Trusty said, "The Presidential Records Act supersedes traditional classification issues." He added that the president does have unrestricted access and unrestricted authority. The next meeting has not been scheduled as of late on Tuesday. Biden on Tuesday, September 20th, called on Congress to pass the DISCLOSE Act, which will require super PACs, that is, political committees that can solicit and spend unlimited sums of money, and certain other groups, to disclose the donors who contribute $10,000 or more in an election cycle. However, this measure is doomed to fail due to the lack of Republican support. The DISCLOSE Act originally incorporated a Democrat-sponsored voting rights bill that was designed to counteract voting restrictions that had been established in Republican-led states. The bill passed the House in January but died in the Senate due to strong Republican opposition. Now Democrats seek to try it again before November's midterm election. The bill is up for vote in the Senate this week. After the 2020 U.S. elections, some Republican-led states have tightened their voting restrictions in order to improve the integrity of elections. They include restrictions on mass mail-in voting, no excuse absentee voting, verification of voter eligibility to vote, and bans on ballot harvesting. Supporters of voting restrictions in the states argue that these measures are necessary to combat election fraud. However, Democrats charge that Republicans have created state policies that make it harder for minorities who tend to support Democratic candidates to vote, while Republicans charge that Democrats are trying to get the federal government to take over election laws. Over the past decade, Democrats have repeatedly introduced the bill, but it has always been opposed by the Republicans. Republicans, including Senator Ted Cruz, argue that corporations have the right to make their voices heard through anonymous contributions. There is still no Republican support for the bill, meaning that Democrats will not be able to cross the 60-vote threshold for passing it in the Senate, which is currently split 50-50 between the two parties. In the face of a growing energy crisis, Germany has taken control of the Russian-owned refineries in Germany. It may even take an historic step to nationalize its energy companies. On September 16th, the German government took control of a branch of the Russian oil company Rosneft, and they took over the company Schwedt refinery that is 100 kilometers northeast of Berlin. The German regulator said that the original owner no longer has the right to issue orders. The refinery supplies 90% of Berlin's fuel. The Federal Minister of Economics and Energy, Robert Habeck, said that the move was made to protect the facility and to ensure its safety. The Schwedt refinery has been putting the German government in a dilemma for weeks because it gets all of its oil from Russia. But Germany is determined to stop importing oil from Russia by the end of this year under EU sanctions. However, the takeover of Schwedt could cause a retaliation by Moscow. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that Germany is ready for the possibility that Russian oil supplies may suddenly stop. In addition, Berlin is under increasing pressure to nationalize the troubled Uniper. With Russia's main pipeline to Germany cut off, energy supplier Uniper is locked in a struggle for survival. It has to buy enough gas at sky-high prices to meet its contractual obligations. Last May, Uniper accepted 19 billion euros in state aid in exchange for a 30% stake. With that money now exhausted, the group is negotiating with the German government over a nationalization plan. Germany's nationalization of large energy companies would be an historic step for Germany. So, will this avoid the collapse of its domestic energy market? Interestingly, what happened in Germany today seems to have been predicted by President Trump a few years ago. President Trump told a rally in Ohio on Saturday that he had long warned that Germany could be threatened by Russia because of its energy dependence on Russia. President Trump said that back when Angela Merkel was still the Chancellor of Germany, President Trump warned her that if Germany gets 72% of their energy from Russia, then they would have to surrender very quickly. Back then, his words were not taken seriously. He was even ridiculed. But now they are not laughing anymore. According to President Trump, Germany today has to go back to things that are old-fashioned, such as coal, because the country has no choice. Not only Germany, but also the entire European Union is in a state of tight gas supply. European countries are preparing for massive power outages, and it's expected that many residents will have to face an exceptionally cold winter. According to the European Commission, the EU consumes 11% of the world's total energy supply, with 40% of its natural gas and 25% of its oil being imported from Russia. At the end of last month, the Russian energy company Gazprom began to limit the supply of natural gas that is delivered through Nord Stream 1. Now, the elimination of energy waste has become a top priority for European governments. The European Union has developed a plan to try to reduce natural gas consumption by 15% this winter and to ensure that natural gas reserves reach 80% of total storage capacity by November 1st. Germany, France, and Spain have introduced new rules to limit the heating temperature of public buildings to a maximum of 19 degrees Celsius during the winter. In addition, France requires stores with air conditioning to close their doors, otherwise they could be fined 750 euros. Countries also recommend that their citizens turn down their central heating and shorten their shower times. To mitigate the recent sharp rise in energy prices, the European Commission proposed a motion on September 14th that would reduce electricity consumption in member states by at least 5% during peak hours. They also proposed to cap the revenues of low-cost power companies, including renewable energy, at 180 euros per megawatt hour, and to impose a windfall tax of at least 33% on excess profits that are generated by oil, gas, coal, and refining sectors. Because the proposal needs the support of the majority of EU member states in order to pass, the EU energy ministers plan to hold another special energy conference on September 30th to vote on the proposal. Some observers pointed out that the accelerated closure of coal-fired power plants and the abandonment of nuclear energy is a major cause of the current spike in European electricity prices. The German government said last week that in order to protect the power supply, Germany will allow 2 of the 3 remaining nuclear power plant stations to stay open after the original December closure date. However, the increase in energy supply outside of getting it from Russia is not very optimistic. The United States is the world's second largest exporter of natural gas after Russia, but the U.S. shale industry has warned that they can't pump enough oil and gas to meet the continent's energy needs. Scott Sheffield, the chief executive of the U.S. shale giant Pioneer Natural Resources, PNR, said that shale oil will not increase production significantly because no companies are adding rigs. The first 4 months of this year, the United States has exported 74% of its liquefied natural gas to Europe, compared with an annual average of 34% last year. The International Monetary Fund chief, Kristalina Georgieva, said last week that Russia's invasion of Ukraine has had terrible economic consequences and it is raising fears of a recession. Some countries are definitely worried about a recession. Even if it's not a recession, it could feel like a recession this winter. Georgieva warned, and if Mother Nature decides not to cooperate and the winter is actually harsh, that could lead to some social unrest. This is just the latest of many warnings of the social instability that is now facing the continent. Commentators in Britain, France, and Germany are expressing concern that the public could lose its patience if they are unable to heat their homes in the coming months. French President Emmanuel Macron, for example, is now repeatedly urging his people to remain calm and to cooperate as the country approaches what he calls the end of the abundance. German authorities, for their part, have taken a tougher stance, with one official dismissing as enemies of the state a section of the population that wants to resist the German government's extremely poor decisions. Meanwhile, the head of one major trade union in the United Kingdom has said that sentiment in the country is now similar to the sentiment during the poll tax riots, which occurred in the early 1990s in response to a levy that was brought in by then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Sharon Graham, head of the Unite Union, said, "I actually think there's a moment where people could rise to doing exactly the same thing again." She emphasized that tensions have become at least as bad as they were back then. In Canada, in the Toronto area, there is a delivery driver who lost his job. His application for employment insurance benefits was also denied by the government after he refused to comply with his employer's mandatory COVID-19 vaccine policy. The driver fought for his rights through legal means. A federal tribunal recently ruled in the delivery driver's favor, so he is entitled to his employment insurance benefits. According to the National Post, Timothy Conlon, the delivery driver, was fired last summer after he refused his employer's request for the COVID-19 vaccine. Conlon said he decided not to get the vaccine because of his concerns about his blood pressure and the fear of developing blood clots after getting the vaccine, just like some patients have been getting. After losing his job, Conlon's application for employment insurance was also denied. The Employment Insurance Commission of Canada ruled that he was fired for misconduct. The Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms, the JCCF, represented Conlon and other people with similar conditions in several lawsuits. Tribunal member Solange Laussier ruled in Conlon's favor last Friday on September 16th. The ruling reads, the claimant was dismissed 2 days after being informed of the vaccine policy. He said it was not intentional misconduct. No complaint was ever made about his performance, no condemnation was ever made, and the employer failed to reasonably accommodate him. The JCCF says that the loss of his job and the denial of benefits has left Conlon in a financial disaster, and that he has had to rely on the kindness of his friends to help him get through this. The implication of this ruling are sure to be far-reaching. Employment and Social Development Canada has issued guidance to employers that anyone fired for refusing to comply with vaccine regulations should be listed as resigned on their employment record. This is a move that would disqualify the fired person from receiving employment insurance benefits. JCCF lawyer Marty Moore told the National Post that the federal government discriminates against Canadians who refuse to get vaccinated by giving false information that the vaccine stops the spread of the virus. This is a serious violation of the Canadians' bodily autonomy and constitutional rights. He said that the ruling was a positive step against the government from continuing to do this. The Gateway Pundit reported that the highest level of independent researchers have evaluated the Canadian government data from Ontario, and they have found that the vaccine does not reduce hospitalizations and deaths in people under 60 years of age. In a recent report that was prepared for the Liberal Party of Canada in June, experts concluded that even with a booster shot, the COVID-19 vaccine is not 100% effective in preventing infections and hospitalizations, but rather it has the potential to increase hospitalizations. It makes sense that in mid-April of 2021, when less than 3% of Canadians were fully vaccinated, the majority of cases in hospitals would be those who were unvaccinated. What is puzzling, though, is that in mid-January of 2022, when 77% of Canadians were fully vaccinated, there were more vaccinated cases in the hospitals than cases of people who were unvaccinated, and it was many times more. There are currently 6 times more vaccinated cases in the ICUs compared to unvaccinated cases, and there are 5 times more vaccinated cases in hospitals compared to unvaccinated cases. The report concludes that empirical evidence does not support the continuation of mass vaccination programs, mandates, vaccine passports, and travel bans for all age groups. Instead, the science shows that it may be appropriate to utilize a more targeted and cost-effective approach that focuses on vaccinating high-risk populations while taking into account the potential risks that are associated with vaccines for individuals. Elon Musk is hell-bent on sending humans to Mars. So, is Mars fit for human life? Is there life on Mars? The Perseverance rover, which landed on Mars last year, is sending back increasingly certain answers for scientists. NASA's Perseverance rover is investigating signs of ancient life on Mars, and it has now collected some of the most promising samples from the red planet. NASA says that the Jezero crater looks unbelievably desolate, but scientists have found samples of rocks there that contain organic material. Scientists were surprised to see signs of life in the 12 rock samples that were collected there by the Perseverance rover. Scientist Sananda Sharma said that the spectrometer observed minerals and organic matter on the surface of a rock called the Wildcat Ridge. The organic minerals are likely to be aromatic or stable molecules of carbon and hydrogen. These are the elements that are essential to life for humans. Sharma said, "This really shows that there appears to be a long-term presence of organic material on the surface of Mars in a very hostile environment, which is very exciting for us." Although these elements of organic matter that have been detected alone do not fully indicate the presence of life on Mars, they are enough to be an important clue. Scientists hope that as Perseverance conducts more surveys, more and more evidence to support the theory of life will emerge. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you like what you saw today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.